So what I'm going to share with you today is the new CATIA roles that are coming out in 21X that will be orderable and how they fit into the new portfolio of solutions, processes, and then roles. So without further ado, we'll go straight into it, and then after that, I'll try to not take too much time. I'll try to take 20, 30 minutes to leave uh, it open to questions. But back to the primary subject today, and that's the new 21X portfolio. Uh, this portfolio has been structured again for the construction cities and territories industry, and it fits within the motto of CATIA, which is to shape the world we live in. There's a driving principle in the portfolio, and that is to use a template-based approach to leverage knowledge and know-how, to reuse parametric templates and maintain a continuous level of development from concept and schematic design through design development, detailed design, and construction, and to focus on two portions of this industry, that is buildings and infrastructure. It's buildings of all scale and infrastructure of any complexity. And so using those principles and keeping those principles in mind, we've refocused the portfolio and maintained the IFC compatibility. So IFC has been a driver and a common thread in our development so that we maintain compatibility through with the industry standard format and let this structure really drive and support the portfolio and development efforts for buildings and infrastructure. So a quick look at where we were last year, and over the past 3-4 years, the portfolio has evolved. It was already industry specific, and one of the driving forces in the new portfolio of 21X was to create an industry specific portfolio for all industries, not just construction or construction cities and territories, in architecture, engineering, and construction. And so we were a bit ahead of the game in that respect, where we already had a dedicated portfolio, but we've taken the opportunity to refine and expand the portfolio to become more comprehensive and more powerful. So with the 21X portfolio, you see we've expanded on the engineering disciplines, and created a couple of new roles that we saw were being used from other industries within this industry that came from other industries. In particular, the building and civil schematic systems engineer, building and civil 3D electrical engineer, and building and civil 3D fluid engineer. Those three roles are building on what was released in ELG, FLG, so electrical 3D designer and fluid 3D designer, and have been enriched to include the building and civil assemblies for the AEC data model and IFC compatibility. So those roles have been integrated into the portfolio. As well, now we have a dedicated role with X Generative Design. It's not going to be released yet in GA because we had some last-minute packaging changes, but it's going to be released in FDO1, which is coming in mid-July, I believe. So we've got a dedicated role for X Generative Design called the Computational Designer for Construction, and it's going to be a mixture of X Generative Design plus the rich client. And I have slides later on here that's going to show us the exact contents of each one of these roles. The building designer is very similar to the concept building designer and the architectural detail designer put together. I know there was a pain, frustration, and confusion about why there were solids and surfaces and just the missing capabilities in either the concept building designer or the architectural detail designer. So we've decided to just merge those two roles together, essentially for the building designer. The building and civil 3D MEP designer is very similar to what we had last year with the 3D MEP designer. And then on the right, and then we have the civil designer on the on the design side for infrastructure, which is very similar to what we had in the civil engineering role last year. So I'll just do a quick flip back and forth between 20X. You see 20X last year we had the civil engineer, which covered all design and engineering aspects of an infrastructure project. This year we've split that into two. So we have the civil designer, and then on the right-hand column with the engineering focused roles, just about every one of these roles, excluding the schematic systems engineer, is going to include template designer capabilities. So everything that was in KDI and the template designer role has been embedded inside these roles. So the rule is basically, with the exception of building and civil schematic systems engineer, if the role name ends in engineer, it includes KDI. So with that, we've also added a new role called the building and civil presenter, and we've maintained what was the BIM role, the building and civil coordinator, is now the building and civil model coordinator. So this is the new 21X portfolio. The 20X portfolio is no longer orderable, meaning when you come on the cloud to renew your roles this year, you will not be able to renew any of those 20X roles. You will have to migrate to 21X. That, in my opinion, is a good thing because these roles are more powerful and they are cheaper. If we get to the prices, that's fantastic. Because if there's one thing I'm super excited about is that the roles are more powerful and they're cheaper, so that it's absolutely in your benefit to migrate to this portfolio as soon as possible. The second aspect to this, and I should have mentioned this in the beginning, is that it's only the cloud that it's upgraded to 21X. Any on-premise installation, any on-premise is not going to be able to upgrade until November. So the normal upgrade to 21X on-premise will not happen until November. And what that means then is we're not skipping, or we're not moving up the release date for all new subsequent releases. 22X is not going to come next April, it's going to come next November. So there's going to be, I think, 6 or 8 functional deliveries, FDs and hotfixes, between now and 22X, which is going to happen in November of 2021. So that's the big information. That's the big reveal, and now I'll get a little bit more into the details of the contents of each one of these roles. Again, remember that the Dassault structures this portfolio around a set of solutions. And so here's a look at the 2020 solution portfolio for the construction, cities, and territories industries. Among those solutions, there are a new change in the 21X portfolio is that the process experiences are branded. And the process experiences then are going to be the way to navigate this new portfolio. So here we see a reduced view of the solutions that show and that highlight what are the CATIA-led industry processes. So there's one note here is design for fabrication is going to be reworked in 2020, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. Integrated built environment is not a primary, a majority-led CATIA solution, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'm going to look at the cloud-only creative building design solution and the civil infrastructure engineering solution. Creative building design, there are 4 processes. 2 of them are majority CATIA. One of them is specifically what I'd like to look at. That's the building detailed engineering process. That process has a number of roles. So the solution contains processes contain roles, and then those roles contain applications. Because the computational designer for construction is not released until FD01, in the meantime, there's a new role in 21X for external design. It's called the 3D pattern shape creator. It is no longer called the 3D generative innovator. It's now the 3D pattern shape creator. There's the building and civil model coordinator, building designer, building design engineer, building and civil presenter, and templates, optimization, and rules designer packaged inside that process. On civil infrastructure engineering solution, I'm going to look most specifically at the civil infrastructure design process. That includes identical packaging to what we just saw, except there's the building designer and building design engineer have been replaced with civil designer, civil engineer. Other than that, the two packaging is the same. I'm going to skip over integrated built environment. And so how do we navigate to those processes? And how do we navigate to those roles? You've all seen, I hope, that the compass has changed. And there's a new My 3D Experience portfolio navigation section. So now you will have noticed that there's the 3D, the west, north, east, and southern compasses no longer do anything. You just click on the play on the compass, and that's going to show the roles that you have and the applications that you have currently assigned to you in the Me section. And then in the World section, you can navigate through the portfolio to discover these new roles and new roles that you might not have or new roles that you might be interested in. So to do that, you click on the Industry section, and then you can scroll down to Construction, Cities, and Territories, and then choose one of the solutions that you'd like to navigate to. So far, we only have 2 solutions. I'm not counting the digital equipment continuity solution. Just between the civil infrastructure engineering solution and the creative building design solution, you can access the roles in that solution by clicking on that, and then you'll find the process. We only have one process listed in each one of those solutions at the current time. And so on the building side, there's the building detailed engineering industry process experience. And then you can look at all the different roles. We've posted text, videos, images, and then the list of applications that are contained in each one of those roles. You can do the same for the civil and infrastructure design industry process experience, and that's going to contain all of the roles that I highlighted earlier. And from there, then you can see what are the apps contained in those roles. So looking at for example, the building and civil model coordinator, there's a number of base apps here, a number of converters, and then the key apps. Now, out of the box standard with all roles, we have the converter for Rhinoceros, converter for Revit, converter for FBX, Collada, and AutoCAD, in addition to OBJ, IFC, and STEP. So that's great news. And then among the building and civil model coordinator, this isn't a super powerful role. It's mostly about integrating models, doing design review, interference check in the rich client. A new role that's come out is the building and civil presenter. And here we've taken a number of applications from the design and styling portfolio. And the key application here, or the key apps here, is again building and civil assemblies, so that you have the data model, the AEC data model, geolocation. We also have experience models preparation, which is great for reducing triangle count on detailed models so that they are fast to visualize. Human design, to do a design of human people. If you haven't seen the human design app, it's actually very cool. It's got a catalog of detailed human beings, and then you very parameterized, so you can change just about every feature of that person, male or female or other, and customize hair color, skin color, eye color, clothing, posture, etc. So it's a very cool application to populate your models. Then there's live rendering scene design, ambient studio, and finally the product perception experience application, which allows you to create variations of color and variations of product assembly and product structure, assembly structure, and create a user interface similar to PowerPoint, where you have slides and links to animate and perform design reviews of your models. So this is a a new and interesting application to role to prepare and then review models. Computational Designer for Construction coming out in FD01. It shares the same base apps as the other roles. It shares the same converters. These are not web converters, so unlike X-Generative Design, for this role there is a rich client portion in order to do import-export AEC data model with building and civil assemblies, geolocation, but it includes X-Generative Design and it includes I put on here on this slide, this is X-Shape, which is a placeholder. I don't think we've released the CATIA version of this. In SolidWorks, you'll see that there is in 21X, there's a new role in what we are calling the Works portfolio, which is called the 3D Sculptor. The 3D Sculptor is available with X-Shape and then a couple of other applications to integrate with SolidWorks. So we're going to, in 21X FD01, there will be a CATIA version of X-Shape, and that will be packaged into this role. So that's a web app to complement X-Generative Design, the web app. So there are two web apps for 3D modeling and authoring, and then the rich client for import, export, assembly making, etc. The Building Designer. So this is where we see there's been a mixing of Concept Building Designer and the Architectural Detail Designer. So there's building engineering 3D design, building and civil assemblies, building space planning, building structures, sheet metal, terrain, imagine and shape, live rendering, natural sketch, 2D layout for 3D design. We've included also the converter for step multidiscipline because that was always a sore spot in the past where you needed, if you wanted to do a batch export of step, you needed a new role. That was relatively expensive, and just defeated the purpose. So we've added the converter for step multidiscipline to do batch export of step, and we've also got a couple of new drafting applications, the multidiscipline drafter and the template designer, in order to take advantage of the acquisition that we made a few years ago of ATEC, smart drawings. And so now those smart drawings are included in the role by default. And you'll see now between the building designer and the building design engineer, it's identical packaging, except we've added engineering rules capture, engineering templates, know-how apps creation, know-how apps reuse. It's essentially the template designer, KDI of past, included in this one role. So this role is a dream role from my perspective because it includes just about everything you could need, everything you could want, everything you need to do concept detailed design with rendering and sheet metal and structures, terrain. It's got everything. So I'm really excited about this role. Next, there's the civil designer. The civil designer shares the same base apps as the building design engineer and building designer, except instead of having building engineering 3D design, you have civil engineering 3D design. There are concrete structures 3D design. We've added to the civil designer role everything that was in the concept building designer of previous years. So there's now building space planning to do conceptual buildings to populate your infrastructure project. You've got imagine and shape to do subdivision surface modeling, and live rendering to create those realistic renderings of your infrastructure project, to create cameras, animate your cameras to move along path and do follow your alignment, all kinds of great things. We've also added here the same multidiscipline drafting and drafting template creator, along with the standard set of converters now, which include the converter for Revit, converter for Rhino and OBJ and Collada, FBX, etc. Finally, the civil engineer. It's exactly like the civil designer with the template designer inside. So now you've got engineering. You can create engineering templates. You can do custom scripting, all with the same set of tools that you would have from civil designer. I haven't been able to make the ID cards for the other roles yet. So the MEP designer, the electrical designer, the fluid designer, or the building and civils fluid designer, building and civil electrical designer, or the building and civil structures engineer. Those will be coming in the near future. And that's it.